I'm Eric Lipsy, and this is Galt University. Today, I'm here with Rachel Munoz of J&R Insurance. How are you doing today, Rachel?
Good. How about yourself, Eric?
Outstanding. Thank you very much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it too.
Well, today we wanted to talk about corporate insurance and what that really means for businesses, because I hear the term tossed around sometimes and it comes up in conversation. I personally don't know a lot about it, and I'm sure there's people in the audience who may not know what the ins and outs of corporate insurance or business insurance is. So maybe you could even start by telling us what the difference is between personal and corporate insurance.
Okay, sure. Yeah, not a problem. So personal insurance is going to be your personal auto, home, renters. That's personal. That's not tied to your business.
Mhm.
And then your business insurance is going to be anything that's tied to your business, to your EIN number, to what you're doing on your everyday basis work. So that might be your general liability, excess liability, professional liability, property, business, personal property. So there's quite a few different categories for business insurance on what makes up that business. So that's the main difference, is just whatever your business is and how that's taken care of and how you want it to be taken care of. There's a lot of caveats to it too. So a lot of questions that need to be asked by the consumer rather than expecting the agent, because we don't know everything that you're doing. So we need to know everything that you're doing. It's okay to expose that. It's okay to say I'm making $1.5 million. Is it rated off of that? Yes. But it's also good to have so that you're not audited the following year, because they do audit commercial policies. On there, and they audit them to make sure that you're within line of how your business is growing and making sure all that. So it's based off of payroll and the oh gosh, I am so sorry. The payroll and your annual revenue on there. And so there's a lot of caveats, like, again, asking a bunch of questions, also divulging everything to your agent that you're working with too, because a lot of people keep that back and they don't divulge all that stuff, where that comes into may not cover it. Commercial definitely will not cover things if you don't have it on the policy. So that's why you want to talk to your agent and use them as an advisor to find these out about your commercial insurance. Personal too, but I think personal is a little bit different. I mean, it's just a different category, a different beast when it comes to insurance, where commercial is definitely a little bit more elaborate. Do you have employees? Do you have no employees? Are you working out of your home? Are you working at a business office? Do you own the property? Do you not? Are you renting it? There's so many different questions that need to be answered. You need excess liability. Do you need to have professional liability because you carry a license of some sort, or the field you're in? Do you need to have that coverage? And so I think there's just a lot that has to be asked and told from both sides.
Okay, so there's a lot of different things that fall under the commercial insurance. It's not just a blanket policy. You have to really go through and comb through exactly what these people's situations are. Now, I know a lot of small businesses work from home, right? So what does it look like when you're insuring some things? Like, I have my computers that I use for work, and then I have my personal items as well.
Right.
Now, would it be important, because I do have that under my personal insurance because it's in my home? Should I have it under a separate policy for the items in my home, as opposed to having it under my personal insurance?
So you're gonna have to figure out what's best for you. I mean, it comes down to looking at the whole picture. Are you taking that computer with you? Are you traveling to go to see clients with that computer? What are you doing with your equipment? What happens in a fire? Do you really have media coverage under your homeowners or your renters policy? This will cover that, under your business. They'll cover under either way, but it's what are you talking to your agent about? What are you doing with that? And those would be the questions I'm asking. What are you doing with your business? Are you working solely out of the home? This is what I think you should do, if this is just completely business. But if you're using it 90% personal and then 10% business, maybe we put it on a personal. It's all going to kind of be, again, those questions that come out. So It's a lot of Q&A with a
Uh-huh.
client. It's literally sitting down like you would with the doctor and say, where's that pain?
Mhm.
Why is that pain? How long is that pain? That's the same thing that we're going to be doing for you, is asking a ton of questions and seeing what's the best fit. And at home policies, they're called a business owner policy versus
Mhm.
a general liability. Usually a business owner's policy has that tied in amount of equipment or tools or office equipment or whatever tied in with that policy.
Mhm.
So again, it's a question and answer type thing. Are you using a home and then you go to a business, do you need tenant liability? Do you not? Like for your situation, you're probably not going to need the tenant liability because you have renters or homeowners. So you're not going to need that coverage. So it's all, again, it's so hard to describe on a session like this because we're going to
Right.
be doing a lot of questions for
Mhm.
you, and any agent would. Again, it's divulge the stuff so that we know what's important or what's not important. Say, okay, this is how we can sift through this.
Now imagine some of the biggest things, like if you're going to have, and I know you have to, it's going to be tailored into each individual business, but for your larger items, I imagine people really should consider having those, whether even for your commercial space, because some people do have the brick and mortars as well, but covering the more expensive items for sure, because the replacement costs could be insurmountable depending on what type of equipment that it is that you have. So I imagine those are some of the things. Have you seen things where people wish they had had something insured on the commercial side where it ended up just putting them in a bad situation? Could you give us an example? Because sometimes people need to hear an example
Sure.
of something that, to really paint a picture for how challenging it could be to not have insurance.
Right. Well, I think the prime example right now would be used that he was on Channel 7 News, the Rotary out there in Lafayette lost their whole entire business. They just started up in December, lost it in December. And he was talking about like he's got the coverages to cover. Maybe he didn't sound like he was going to reopen there, but he
Mhm.
has the coverage to make sure that his employees have payment to them while they're out of a job. He's hoping to recoup some of his personal property that he had in there. So again, as like for myself, my office, I put in cubicles a few years ago, spent over $8,000. That's something that I want to have on my policy. So for instance, like Tony Lisco, when he did his remodel with Teresa,
Mhm.
same situation there, is that he might have bought new furnishings for that, new artwork or whatever. So those, depending on how much that stuff was
Mm.
it under 1,500? Was it over 1,500? Did he buy $3,000 desks? He probably wants to schedule those out. So again, it's looking at what you're bringing in that you want covered so that you don't have any out-of-pocket expense. Now,
Mhm.
with commercial insurance though too, you have a different replacement cost. It's not always covered at 100%. It may be covered up to 90%, 80%, depending on how the policy is written too. So you have to realize that you're going to have some losses, but it's
Mhm.
better to be loss of 20% versus 100%. And I
Right.
think sometimes we take the cheap road. Oh, I don't need that insurance. Until you're sued,
Yeah.
theft, fire,
Mhm.
then
Right.
you don't have the coverage. And that's where I think we all make that mistake, is we have no problem spending, putting money into our business, getting a business loan for $1 million, but then you don't cover everything that's making that $1 million business.
Mhm.
And that's the question, is like, why would you sacrifice coverages on that? And thefts, like contractors, we've had several contractors just in my own book of business that had stolen vehicles, catalytic converters stolen, stolen insulation floater parts.
Yeah.
It goes on and on and on, and like thousands of dollars have been stolen. And the system's so broken, they let these people out on PR bonds, and they're not being held to a responsibility of paying these people back, and then they get canceled from their insurance because they
Yeah.
have too many claims. So I mean, it's just an upward battle, but that's what the reason is for you having it. They've recouped their money. Now they're gonna have to pay a higher price, but they're still insured for that what if moment on there. And then we have to figure out what's important to claim too.
Great. Now you mentioned schedule those out. where you were mentioning Tony Liska possibly buying a desk for work or whatnot.
And
What
I
is
don't
that
know if
like
he
an
did. I don't know
oh
if
no
he
no
did,
no
but
no, it's fine. Yeah, you mentioned is that like an amortization type thing when you say schedule it out or
it is.
what is?
It's kind of like having a piece of jewelry. You
Mm-hmm,
bought a wedding ring, and you want to make sure that it's covered in the case of theft, a lost item,
mm-hmm,
whatever, fire situation. Same thing with your personal property. Anything that's over a value, because they're only going to pay up to a certain value, and
mm-hmm,
then after that, that's all they're going to give you. So if you don't have it scheduled out, so you have a $3,000 desk maybe,
mm-hmm,
and they're only going to give you $1,000 because that's the max that they pay out on those items. And then let's
mm-hmm,
say that you only had $20,000 in there, but you really got $100,000 worth of personal property,
mm-hmm,
business personal property. They're only going to give you that 20,000. You're out $80,000. So
mm,
that's why I advise that everybody takes, a video, pictures of what they have, update with
mm-hmm,
their agent at least on an annual basis.
mm-hmm.
If not, when they buy the product, if they've got a painting in there, they're probably going to want to schedule that out. If it's a painting, a pricey painting of some sort, or
Yeah.
they bought I don't know, like a crystal ball or a Fabergé egg or something like that for your
Yeah.
office. Little things like that. Something that's going to be in your office that can have potential of theft or losing the fire that you want to be compensated for.
Great. Now, is depreciation and appreciation taken into consideration with the cost of insurance? Like, say I buy something today, like say it's a piece of art, and some years from now, that piece of art I paid 1,000 today, but it's worth 10,000 years from now, or vice versa. If I buy something today that costs 5 grand, or say a piece of equipment that depreciates every year, and then going down 5 years from now, that piece of equipment that has depreciated. But does the cost of the insurance change with that, or is it just based on replacement cost, or or you just keep the policy whatever it was set at that time?
So let's just say it's a piece of art you have in your office,
Hmm.
and it's has possibilities of having appreciation. Then you'll
Hmm.
want to make sure that you're getting those appraisals done on there. Every 2 to 3 years,
Got it. Okay.
get an appraisal done on it.
Hmm.
Does it cost money? 9 times out of 10, yes, it does cost you money to get an appraisal.
Hmm.
And this is where people fail because again, it's a cost that they have to put out.
Hmm.
But do you want to recoup that from $1,000 to $10,000 painting? Of
Right.
course, so the $250, $500 cost that it is to get that taken care of. So you spent $1,500 over 10 years to make
Hmm.
sure it has its value. It's very much needed on there. Now, your computers are going to depreciate just because computers are just like cars. They
Hmm.
depreciate, so you're not going to get anything out of those. But yes, collectible items. Now, antiques are a different thing.
Hmm.
Antiques are a value of whatever you think they are, because there could be a value of different people, different things. So that bureau, that nice bureau that you put in your office, it's antique and you paid $2,500 for, but somebody else sees it a value of $100, you're going to have to prove why it's worth $2,500.
So you
On
need to have some kind of track record of people paying
It's hard
that
on
sort of,
antiques. Antiques are
yeah.
hard. So
Huh.
I think that's one of those things that your expectation and somebody else's, claims adjuster's expectation could be two different things.
I see.
So it's always keep records, keep receipts, get
Mhm,
appraisals done, be on top of it. And that's again where you should be talking to your agent, but it's really your responsibility as a consumer, but I should be asking you those questions too, especially if it's
mhm.
already on your policy. But I'm not going to know you bought that painting, because how am I supposed to know
Right.
if you don't tell me? So then the fire happens and you're like, it never got added on. Well,
Mhm,
show me where you sent me the email, what, like, because
I
that's going to
see.
be my thing, is that I'm going to be held to a responsibility too as an agent to make sure that you're updated with
Mm,
your items. So when I send you, for instance, our agency sends you out a renewal, and it says, you're up for renewal, let us know of any changes on there. I can't read your mind, Eric. I just can't. I would love to
Right.
know that you just bought a $5,000 painting, but I'm not going to know that. So that's where, again, going through, taking inventory before we
Mhm.
have a renewal, setting that date with your agent to sit down, have a comprehensive conversation once a year. I ask once a year for people to sit down with their agent to
Mhm.
at least go over all their assets and make sure they're in place, because you don't want to wait till what's happened with the fires to be in that situation and not be able to grieve properly. And that's the thing, is that we've left
Mhm.
that ability for people not to grieve. And
Yes.
I don't care if you're a business owner or a homeowner, it's still all the same. It's
Right.
causing stress. So
Absolutely.
we don't want to ever have any, left, especially like when we had all these thefts that happened to my contractors. We were able to, get them some monies back with even depreciation. At least
Mhm.
they had money to
Right.
get back on there.
Right.
They were able to continue their business minus their deductibles, minus their depreciation. So they might have been out a couple $1,000
Mhm.
versus $20,000. So a 2,000 is easier to compensate for than $20,000. So that's the thing. And cutting corners, saying, "Oh, I don't need that insurance." You may
Mhm.
think you don't need that insurance. Then
Right.
what happens when the situation happens? And then
Right.
who do you want to blame? You want to blame yourself, because now you're out having to go out and shopping and get all the stuff that you don't
Right.
have the money for.
Right. Just, I mean, the sad situation here in Colorado just a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago now, it's just something you never think would ever happen, and it was just something out of a movie scene, like, and it's, wow, it's real. It actually happened, and it's just stuff you don't want to think, is possible, but it is possible. And not that it's going to happen, but it very well could happen. And I
Right.
think that was like a wake-up call for a lot of people, saying, wow, you know what, I really should have more things in place to make sure that I'm covered in case of, situations like this. And it wasn't just residential, it was businesses also. And it's, yeah, it's just really something to think about and to.
Well, and we shouldn't wait till a moment for that to happen. I know as insurance, it's the most negative bill you want to pay because you have
Right.
no control in it, right?
Right.
But I think like that goes back to investing in yourself and in
Hmm.
taking care of your assets and investing in that. So
Right.
it's a gamble. You're going to ever use it again.
Hmm.
That's why insurance is there. It's a gamble. And with those people that had insurance and they're going to be able to rebuild after the grief and all of the understanding of how the insurance is going to work, it probably will come out to being hopefully okay. But some
Hmm.
people might have an old policy that doesn't have all those coverages today, or
Hmm.
have enough coverages. We have building costs are exorbitant today
Hmm.
compared to where they were even a couple years ago. So now the price of wood, the price of concrete is
Right.
triple, quadruple
Yeah.
the price, and
Hmm.
they may not have enough coverage. But we didn't ask any questions at that point in time. All we see is, oh, we can sell our property for $1 million, and that's all
Right.
we're worried about.
Right.
And we're like, are we insured for that?
Right.
Now, are we going to be okay for that? And that's the thing, is that we again, I find that people cut corners with insurance. And yes, I
Hmm.
don't like to pay it anyway. I'm insurance broke myself,
Yeah.
but I'm covered for every situation.
Hmm.
And I'm protecting my clients from every situation, because I'm carrying the correct insurance for myself, on there. I have workman's comp, I have general liability, I have my professional liability, I have excess liability,
Yeah.
it just goes on and on and on. And I have property coverage. I mean, like all of it adds up, and it's very, very frustrating.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I know I'm going to continue to be able to, if we had a fire in this building, I'm going to be able to move my office and still work adequately without missing a beat.
Yeah.
Yes, we might have to buy some new equipment. We might be out for a week or something like that. But with the transitions we've made, I've made it so that we're mobile 100% because of 2020. But
Right.
what does that look like, and where do we have that coverage to protect you too as a consumer and your private property, private information that we take from you?
Yeah. That's good stuff. It's really good information. So thank you
A
very much.
lot. It's a lot. It's overwhelming and mind blowing,
Yeah.
right?
It can be, but at the same time, it's those things you won't want to take the time or spend the time doing or discussing are oftentimes the things that come back to bite you. So yeah,
For
so
sure.
Yeah, so it's a lot, but it's worth knowing and it's worth looking into. So yeah, I was gonna ask on the cost side because I know personal property insurance is not very expensive, at least not in my opinion. Uh, on the commercial side, is it? And I know it's gonna depend on what kind of equipment you have or whatnot. But as far as like, I can insure I have more valuable things in my home, but my it's still a whole lot cheaper than car insurance basically. So just if we could give people kind of an idea of the investment to insure, say, 50,000 or $100,000 worth of commercial property or something like that. Just I don't know.
Yeah,
It's probably really difficult to do. I don't know.
well, it is hard to do it, and I won't quote that. The reason is because it depends on the field everybody's in.
Hmm.
A contractor is going to be more expensive than your home office stuff.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
you may pay $500, but then I've got this contract over here pays $9,000 for it.
Right.
So
Yep.
it just depends on the field. It's a huge
Hmm.
array. What's nice about commercial insurance is like a home office business like yourself, Eric, that has a home office business, it's
Hmm.
not going to cost very much. It's actually
Yeah.
pennies on the dollar, just because there's not a lot of exposure, not a lot of liability
Hmm.
exposure. You're not, depending on what you're doing, like if you're coaching or something, that might cause some liability issues that
Hmm.
because you said something to somebody, but then do you have that professional piece, because general
Hmm.
liability is not going to cover out for that. So those are the things that you have to look at, and that can add costs, or it can be very economical. You can have like a barber shop easily can be about $500 a year for
Yeah.
one barber, not
Hmm.
for the whole shop. It's the barber
Right.
himself. But then you
Hmm.
got the shop owner who owns all the stuff. He's going to be paying maybe $5,000 to $10,000, depending on, some of these barber shops are decked out.
Right. Oh yeah.
So it just all depends on what they have in there, what they're
Mhm.
doing. Salons have a lot. Sometimes they've got everything. You can go get tanning done, you can get your hair
Mhm.
done, you can get nails done, all that time. You're looking at a much bigger exposure than
Mhm.
somebody that's just working out of, one of the shopping centers that has just a little 200 square foot little spot for themselves,
Mhm.
and they're going to only pay maybe $500 a year
Yeah.
on there. But there's minimums, there's that you'll pay. It depends on what you need to cover. So I mean, I have clients that pay $500 all the way up to $100,000 a year.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
just a huge, I mean, I can't, like, you can't think, it
Right.
just depends on the field they're in,
Right.
and what exposure they have to us as a consumer. So
Mhm.
like your business is going to be way farther down, and same with my business, we're way farther down the line because we don't
Right.
have a lot of exposure. But
Mhm.
now I add in a taxi service, and it's going to have a lot of exposure because
Right.
I could get in a car accident, so or I could be, I could hit one of my people in the back seat, whatever.
Right.
Or, there's just different avenues. So I think it's just
Mhm.
what your field is. So it's hard to give a direct price on it.
Right.
But I again challenge everybody just to ask and start talking about the discussions of it. And should you or should you not be covered? I don't know. That's going to be coming up to you. I think every business owner, because of the exposure, should have it. I think every homeowner should have insurance. Every auto should be covered. But
Yes.
again, it's not, and I can't control those numbers here,
Right.
but I can try and educate people as we go along. So I challenge anybody, if they have questions, call and ask.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That was a great lead into the next question I was going to ask you, and that is, what is the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to know more about personal? Because I know you don't directly work with it, but your company J&R Insurance does, and or commercial insurance. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So we have our office number, and then you can press one or two, one for personal, two for commercial, and that's 303-659-5200. Or you can also email us at CS, C as in Charlie, S as in Sam, at J as in John, N as in Nancy, R as in Roger, insuranceagency.com. And then, we're here to, ask any questions, because unfortunately, as agents too, we haven't opened that door to our consumers to
Mhm.
say, we are here for you, because you're not going to know. It's not your forte, right?
Right.
You're going to know more about business coaching than myself. I
Right.
just know that I need to hire somebody, like yourself, if I want to grow and see my growth model. So that's why we're good at what we all do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Rachel, J&R Insurance, for being here with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure someone's going to grab value out of this and be able to at least know enough to contact you to get more information. So
Perfect.
thank you.
Well, thank you, Eric, and you have a fantastic 2022. All
Hey, you also.
right.
Thank you. Until
Bye.
next time, this is Galt University.